Hello, everyone. Welcome to Queen City Cardboard. I'm your host, Greg. And I'd like to start this series off with a bang by breaking out one of my all time favorite board games Sagrada, the game of dice drafting and window crafting. This is a 1 to 4 player game, although there's a reasonably priced expansion that lets you do 5 or even 6 players. And game time about 45 to 60 minutes. Now, the reason that this game sings to me is the elegant blend of aesthetics and mechanics. What do I mean by that? Why don't I just show you? As a player in Sagrada, your objective is to gain the most points, naturally, by creating the most beautiful stained glass window you possibly can. Points are awarded by private objectives, one randomly dealt to each player that only that player can score on, and by public objectives that anyone can score on as many times as they meet the prerequisites for that objective. Now, there's a whole deck full of these public objectives from which you'll deal 3 onto the table, giving you a different set of criteria each time you play. You do want the public to appreciate your work after all, but in games as in life, public opinion and trends are finicky and mercurial. Of course, you're a professional glazer, you're not just going to start working without a plan. You'll be given 2 of these 2-sided plan cards at random, choosing one of the 4 plans available to you, let's say this one, and returning the unused card to the box. Now, you'll notice there are little dots in the corner of each card. These dots indicate how challenging the plan is to complete. More dots means more challenge, but more dots also means more favor tokens. These favor tokens will be used during the game to use tools. 3 tool cards will be dealt to the center of the table. These tools are publicly available. Anyone can use them during their turn if they have enough favor tokens to afford it. The first time a tool is used by anyone at any time during the game, it costs 1 favor token. The second time, and every subsequent time that tool is used, it costs 2 tokens. So the second use is 2 tokens, the third use is 2 tokens, etc. Once everyone has made their choices and a first player has been chosen, it's time for each player to sleeve their plan into their player board, like so. Beautiful. And to begin play by collecting pieces of glass, represented by this bag of dice, to build your window. The starting player will draw dice from this bag without looking. The number of dice drawn is 2 per player plus 1. So in a 2-player game, you would draw 5 dice. In a 3-player game, you draw 7, and so on. At the start of the first player's turn after they've drawn, they will roll all the dice they drew, like so. The value on the die represents its tint or shade, and its color represents, well, its color. The first player chooses one of these dice and, without changing its value, puts it in one of the spaces along the edge of their window. Let's go here. You cannot begin building from the center, which makes logical sense. You wouldn't build a real window by just suspending bits of glass in midair. When placing, be sure to observe placement restrictions. Your plan makes this pretty intuitive. If there's a color or a number on a space, then you can only place a die there if it has a matching quality. That's why we were able to place this blue die where we did. White spaces can contain any color or number. Once the first player has selected their die, the player to their left chooses from the remaining dice and places theirs according to the same restrictions. Once everyone at the table has had their turn, we all do it again, but in reverse order. So, the last player to take their turn immediately goes again, and then the player to their right, and so on, so that the one who drafts last is also the one who drafted first. When choosing your second die, and every die for the rest of the game, there's a couple extra rules to consider. Number 1, each die you place must be orthogonally or diagonally next to a die already in your window. So this would be a legal placement. This would not, because it's disconnected from where the window started. Number 2, Two dice with the same shade and or the same color cannot be placed orthogonally next to each other under any circumstances. So even though we have a 2 space here, we could not place this die there because we cannot have a blue directly adjacent to another blue. Likewise, we could not have this 5 sitting next to this other 5 orthogonally. Diagonal, like so, is acceptable. It sounds like a lot, doesn't it? But don't run away, and don't antagonize over your first couple of decisions. You have no idea what will be available next round, and neither do your opponents. After each player has taken their 2 turns, there should be 1 die remaining. This lonely fella goes on the number 1 space of this round tracker to indicate that the first round is over. Nice efficient use of resources, eh? Once 10 rounds have been played in this manner, the round token can be flipped to reveal a scoreboard. Players will be awarded points for their objectives, both public and private, and in the unfortunate case that you cannot fill your entire window, all 20 spaces, you will lose 1 point for each open space on your plan. So that's what setup and play looks like on a nice clean workspace when there's no one else elbowing you to borrow your glazing hammer or your lens cutter. But what does a game of Sagrada really look like? Join me next time and watch an actual play of Sagrada.